Hello, welcome to episode 6 of my fireside talks up here, up in the middle of the woods in Maine. Some housekeeping things first. I am also recording this, if you want to switch over to it now, on the iPhone. I had mentioned last week about how having a camera, really great, awesome investment. But if you're just starting off or just getting your feet wet in the field of podcasting or content creation, not to overlook the iPhone and the usability. So this is what it looks like with this podcast, the same setup. My iPhone right now is just kind of jerry-rigged on top of the camera, so almost the same type of view. That's number one. Number two, I noticed last week, so when I edit the videos and go through the videos, I noticed last week the fire, desolate. I hope this will probably be posted a few days after last episode. I hope someone kind of calls me out on it. Drops a comment. The fire was abysmal. It was dying out by the end. I didn't even look at it once or twice. This time, it's ripping. Ripping fire. I don't know if you can tell from here. I don't want to move you. You got too many things going on over there. But fire's looking good. It's throwing off heat. And I just plopped a nice fat log right on top of it. I don't know if that's the best method for, the absolute brightest fire. Might be smothering it a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, I think it's going to be ripping for this entire episode. So that's some of the housekeeping things, at least what I have here. I am also, while we're on it, I do enjoy having the journal about an hour beforehand. I might just write down my thoughts, kind of have my final idea of what I'm going to talk about, and then just some bullet points. I'm not a big fan of reading off of a script. I think I just jot down the notes, especially when it comes to an episode like this, which if you click on the title, if you notice from the title, it is something along the lines of the foods from El Camino de Santiago ranked. Specifically the top 10 foods. Think it was, I mention it all the time, whether I blog about it or whether it's from one of the previous podcasts, that I completed El Camino de Santiago, one of the best experiences of my life. I still think I'm digesting and processing just how amazing it was. But now I'm about a year removed. I did it this time last year. Actually, I think it was January 20th, I was on the plane to go over to Spain. So I did it in the winter. I did a winter Camino. Can't recommend it enough. I think you get a little bit more of the raw aloneness. There's still, I would say early on, the first few weeks, there'd be 5, 6, 7 people at each hostel that I stay at every night. So there's still people around. But, I don't know if you just heard that bump. It's also snowing here. Pretty, I wouldn't say heavily, but we're getting a decent amount of snow, so I don't know what just fell on the roof, but about 5 to 7 people at the hostel each night, and a little bit more raw. The businessy kind of resort places weren't open, because why would you be open in the winter? What crazy people are going to be walking for 15 miles a day out in the Spanish winter? And secondly, you did have the very meaningful places still open, right? A lot of the old monasteries, a lot of the churches, community centers, the government-run centers, or the families that own hostels that were like all about the Camino spirit. So you get to really kind of go through all the fluff, and you got very easy to find the Camino spirit when you're walking it in the winter. But I want to take that into consideration, that it was during the winter. And whenever you do a backpacking trip, again, the Camino is a multi-hundred mile or 100 kilometer. I guess it depends how long you want to do it for and which path you want to take. For me, it was a 600 mile backpacking trail across Spain. So I started in a city called Pamplona, which is the northeast corner of Spain. And then I ended up going all the way walking to Santiago, which is de Compostela, which is in the northwest coast, little nook right above Portugal. After that, I also went to Murcia and Fistera, which were both, it made a little triangle right on the coast, right on the Atlantic Ocean. And this is what's great about the notes. One of the bigger questions I would get while I was both on this and when I was coming home was, what did I eat? If you think about the somewhat desolateness of the winter, again, businesses might not be open, or just the general idea of backpacking in general of, okay, are you just popping restaurant to restaurant, or, if on these long walks, if you're walking 15 miles a day, plus or minus 3 miles, for my kilometer friends, it's probably the equivalent of like 20 kilometers. If you're doing that a day, how are you managing fueling your body and carrying that food? Oh, and also in Spain, a lot of things are closed on Sunday. So a little bit of forethought, a little bit of preparation. You get the gist. So in the winter, things are a little less open, number one. Number two, when I go through this list, I want you to come from the frame of a very budget-friendly list. So I was trying to live on about $35 maybe $40 per day, including meals, lodging, coffee, all the essentials, And I think that's about 30 euros. So I try to be very budget conscious, not only because I feel like it's a little bit more in the spirit of just thinking about the essentials and not, just blowing your money just because. But also it's a 40-day expedition, plus or minus a week. And that money accelerates over time. So if you're spending an extra $10 a day, which might not sound like that big of a deal, over the course of 40 days, that's $400. And again, this is an amazing experience. So I wouldn't want like the budget or the money. I would want to come with a little bit more of that mind frame of just being a little bit more conscious about what you're spending your money on. So this list, very budget friendly. Secondly, I'm a little bit more of a functional person. So I really look through the lens of the food as fuel. And although this might not be my ideal diet, I think worrying about just getting enough calories in, which again, if you're walking 15 miles a day, depends, right? But I was looking at hopefully getting 25 to 3,000 calories in. Some days I probably didn't get there just because that is a bit of a challenge. But you're looking at very calorically dense foods, right? I'm not going to eat a bag of spinach and get 20 calories out of it, right? I'm looking for something, a lot of bang for the buck, but also just bang for the stomach space. So the more dense foods. And then lastly, when I talk about these foods, it's also coming from a frame of just like the Camino spirit. I think the nature of some of the foods just lend themselves a little bit more to being carried in a backpack or being a part of a hostile environment. Not hostile, but in terms of hostel or hotel environment. So the foods that lend themselves a little bit more to that, right? We're not carrying caviar in our backpack because it's calorically dense and I found it for cheap. It's just not as much of the spirit as some of the other foods. So that will bring me into the list. The budget friendly, the calorically dense, and the Camino-spirited foods. So the first one is going to be ham. or I guess any deli style meat, but specifically ham. I don't know, you might not know this about Spain, or you may have never been to Spain before. They love ham. One of their main jams for food. And I think compared to the US, where maybe you think of ham as like the Christmas, the pink, just kind of like honey ham style, they have tiers of ham, like how we do steaks. So not only very popular in terms of you never really have to go too far. So as you're walking on the path, you're going to go into either grocery stores or markets or delis. It's always going to be there. Obviously, the calorically dense, it's there. A really great just like lunch to have. The thing is, you can't really hold on to it for too long. You can't just kind of throw it in your backpack and say, all right, like I'll have this tomorrow. Obviously, it has to be either refrigerated or cured in some type of way. And generally, again, if you're going to buy something like meat, you want to have it as fresh as possible. But just in terms of it being there, very common. Again, you're looking for calories. The calories are good. Obviously, you want your protein coming in, probably some fats as well. Generally, it's a little expensive, right? Just meat in general, and depending on the quality of the ham. But yeah, some good lunch meat. And this is going to go right into number 2 with some cheese. So ham, deli meat was 10. We're going to go into some cheese with 9. I'm not the biggest fan of just cheese straight up. But the calorically dense, you can't deny. It pairs really well, obviously, with something like a ham. And this is also the thing that I think a lot of people just were having. I think sometimes when you're in the environment and you're looking around, you're like, okay, what's everyone else eating? A lot of people just eating cheese, like cubed cheese, or I don't know. So it's again kind of like a little hand in hand with the ham. That you have some cheese. It's very available on the Camino. Again, the expense was a little more expensive than maybe what I would go for, but generally, you can't also go wrong with cheese. Again, maybe more of a complimentary food, but easy to carry and obviously delicious, especially paired with something like a ham. Now we're going to go into number 8. Now, number 8 was something I didn't even really consider when I had my initial first few days, but then it came in handy so many times, and that's olive oil. Now, you might think olive oil, it's never the easiest thing to transfer something like a glass bottle or a plastic bottle that's carrying liquid, right? A little heavy in the backpack. But just these little like personal size of olive oil, number 1 for cooking. So when you would arrive at a hostel, they would usually have a kitchen and maybe some salt, pepper, seasonings, maybe a little bit left over like rice or something that someone had just left there. But to have your own olive oil and be able to cook right there, obviously was very nice. Secondly, don't overlook the shot of olive oil. I think I found myself at some points where I was like just hungry and maybe just like a little lethargic. And I didn't really have any food on me, but I had that little personal little pint of olive oil. Just taking a shot of olive oil sometimes just took away the hunger pangs. Incredibly calorically dense. Generally not too expensive. Spain's actually one of the largest producers of olive oil. So I think it just came in handy. It was just almost like a fun little thing to have too. You really don't realize how nice it is to have it until you have it. And then you're like, okay, yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense. And it's going to pair with some foods as we got coming up too. Number 7 is soup. Now, soup's so far down on the list just because of you're not going to really carry soup. I don't really mean canned soup either. I guess you could. When you're walking the Camino, you don't really want to walk between the liquids. You might have a water bottle, and you can fill up the water bottle along the way, so it doesn't have to be completely full at all times. But generally, if you're, 15 miles a day, every pound, you feel an extra step. If that's 10,000 steps, it's almost like an extra 10,000 pounds over the course of per pound of extra liquid you have on you. So I wouldn't carry soup with me, more like soup mix. But occasionally at the end of a long day, especially in the winter Camino, You'd find a hostel, either being hosted by a family or maybe just some friends cooking up something. When you had soup at the end of a long day, unbelievable. I was never a huge fan of soup as a kid. And even now, I think maybe in the winter, it's nicer if you have some good broth or, but I was never into just having soup. I get it now after the Camino. Not only one is it just incredibly refreshing and like exactly what you need. It just hits that spot after backpacking in 40-degree weather across an entire country. But there's also something very communal about soup, right? Like they come out with like a big pot, and it might have like lentils or some type of meat in it, some type of chorizo. Something about it was just very like you get a scoop, we're all eating the same thing. And there was just a really great, feeling of community behind the soup as well. Again, I absolutely love the soup on the Camino. Far down on the list because you're kind of sacrificing the fact that you can't just take it in the backpack with you. I just wouldn't do that. I wouldn't suggest it to you. This one I would. So number 6, we have pasta. Now, pasta was really great, especially on Saturdays, going out and buying pasta because stores and markets were typically closed on Sundays in Spain. Unless you went to maybe like a big box retailer, but generally, if you're on the Spanish countryside, it's hard to find things that are open on Sunday. So boxes of pasta, like let's just say an angel hair, super light, so you can carry it with you when it's dried. And then you just make the whole box and you can kind of share it with people. I think it was simple enough. Every hostel usually had a pot. Every hostel usually had some water. And super easy to make. Make the whole batch of it. Again, you have some olive oil on you, so throw some olive oil on there, or whatever's left over, maybe, or maybe sometimes someone else had something else that would pair well with the pasta. That was just a really good feeling when it came to sharing the food. So pasta was really great, and just to have as a backup. I think just like throwing a little box of pasta, again, it adds very little weight, yet you're going to get your calories in, yet it's very budget friendly. So it's really great backup food to have carrying with you as you go on the Camino. But again, especially on the Sundays, that was something that you had to learn really quick. Saturday was an important day because you had to think a little bit further ahead. When you're usually on the Camino just thinking about the next step, you had to have a little bit of foresight with the food on Sunday. Now we're getting a little bit of the fun foods. So that was 10 through 6. 10 ham, 9 cheese, 8 of olive oil, 7 soup, 6 pasta, 5. This might be a little high. I don't know. I kind of like it at 5. We have chocolate, and like I'm talking about bars of chocolate. I think I had towards the end just a bar of chocolate every single day. As I was walking, just a little. Here's another square for every mile, just a square. Calorically dense, cheap. You do need a lot of sugar. Or I shouldn't say you need a lot of sugar. The sugar helps on the longer runs, both on the longer walks, both in terms of fueling your body and also the recovery, just helping your muscles maybe not feel as sore. Also helps the mind quite a bit when you have something like chocolate. And cheap, calorically dense, just a really nice treat to have. And you just buy a bar, throw it in the back pocket. It was like €1. You don't have to get the fanciest chocolate in the world. And just a pleasure to have as you're walking. Just an absolute pleasure. The thing is, I guess this is why maybe chocolate's so low on the list. When I came home and my body was like, what do you mean we're not having a chocolate bar today? The chocolate bars were pretty nice, to have every single day. You're talking, probably 600 calories worth of chocolate. Having to wean off the chocolate, getting back home into like a normal routine of not walking 15 miles a day, bit of a challenge. Actually, it took me longer than that. I had chocolate withdrawals, and it took me longer than I would have thought to get used to not eating a bar of chocolate a day. But while you're on the Camino, go for it. especially chocolate. I think, again, something about chocolate compared to some type of other candy. Just very much more Camino-esque. Number 4, eggs. Now, eggs, I think, get a real big boost because of the budget and the nutrition aspect. All right, so you can get like a dozen eggs. It was like maybe €2, which is the equivalent, maybe like 2 and some change US dollars. You can get a dozen eggs. You can get a lot of calories in, a lot of protein, which again was a little bit harder to find, or at least get a big chunk of it if you were shooting for maybe 50 to 100 grams of protein a day. And it does come with some negatives, right? And just like the soup, it almost plays a certain role. I'm not telling you to carry a dozen eggs as you backpack. It's probably not a good idea. Unless you hard boil them, which I think I did on the Camino, which is good, but again, things crack, things mush. They're probably better food to take with you. Eggs were really great at night and in the morning, as you probably know from common breakfast food in America. Now, I can eat an absurd amount of eggs. I would get a dozen eggs, and I would make 6 eggs at night, and I would make 6 eggs in the morning. And that would be my big dinner, big breakfast. A bit absurd. I think maybe a normal human being, you can find a carton of 6 eggs, or maybe you can even just like split the eggs, or again, maybe hard boil them for the next day, or to keep them. Again, you can't really just throw a dozen raw eggs in your backpack and hope that they don't ruin all your things. But talk about caloric dense. You get your protein in. You get just a really hearty meal. You just feel very satiated. And I honestly, I think all time foods, I would have eggs, in the top, top 3. Here, maybe not a perfect fit in the Camino, but something you should incorporate just in terms of getting your calories in, just in terms of being able to stick to your budget. And yeah, you just have to throw some salt, maybe some seasoning. You can throw it on rice. I even a few nights I made, what's the name of the type of pasta with the egg yolks? And I would do sometimes like some ham. Wow, 10 seconds. I did this before. If I can't think of it in 10 seconds, you'll have to tell me. Not Pomodoro. Yeah, there's no chance. No chance. I remember, but you know what I mean. You mix the egg yolks with some like Parmesan cheese, and you temper them, put it over the pasta. It's delicious, with some bacon or ham. Number 3, as you can tell, I do like chocolate. Number 3 was chocolate milk, specifically Cacao Lat. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a brand of almost like a Nesquik is the American equivalent in Spain. It was at every pretty much convenience store and grocery store. I think it was 800 calories per quarter gallon. So, a big bottle, but just a bottle. Incredibly calorically dense. I sound like a nerd talking about this, but you get a huge bang for the buck. It filled just like everything. And again, this is what I would do. I would pair it with the eggs, and I would do half the Cacao Lat at night and then save the other half for the morning. You get your protein, fats, and carbs in all at once. And I don't know. I've never met any adult, especially if you're an American watching this and doing it. I mean, everyone loves chocolate milk. And this chocolate milk in particular, it tasted like melted chocolate ice cream. So just absolute decadence. And yeah, to subject yourself to that type of deliciousness day after day, again, 15 miles doesn't seem like that far when you have a nice big bottle of Cacao Lat staring you down at the end of it. Number 2, I'm going with bread. Pairing with the olive oil, pairing with the cheese and the ham from earlier on. Also, budget friendliness. bread, super cheap. And I'm not talking about like the loaves of bread, but like an actual like baker's bread. It's not pre-sliced. And in terms of Camino spirit, I would just throw the thing on like a carabiner in my backpack and just hang it off the side. I would have it like in a little plastic bag. So great to have. So great to have. So easy to carry. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to explain bread to you, do I? But, I mean, you can throw it with the olive oil, have a little snack midday. Just something super easy, just to kind of like rip a piece off and just kind of eat something. And when you're looking at maybe 25 to 3,000 calories a day, it's best just to be almost like in a constant state of making sure you're getting enough food. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day too, I mean, bread's just absolutely delicious no matter where you are, but especially when you're just in the middle of nowhere, Spain. Lastly, I feel like 10 through 2, I don't think there are that many eye-opening things, right? Pretty basic foods. Again, I'm pretty, I stick to what I stick to, especially when it comes to the budget, friendliness, and just looking at food as fuel. But lastly, clementines. The absolute best Camino food. There are a few reasons for this. Number one, Spain produces a ton of clementines, so you're getting pretty fresh produce. And just funny enough, in the winter is actually like clementine picking season. So you're getting the best of the best, as local as possible. Being local as well, pretty cheap. You can get a nice bag of, like those fishnet bags of maybe like a dozen to 20-ish per bag. Pretty cheap. But the real reason why clementines are the best Camino food, it's so easy to share. There's something about a clementine when I would be walking around and I'd have it on a carabiner just hanging off of a backpack strap, where you just strike up conversation with whether it's a local or another traveler, another pilgrim. And just the ability to be like, hey, you want clementine? No one ever said no, first of all. It's such an easy fruit that everyone loves, and it's just something so shareable about it, something so throwable about it, right? Like someone can be like a couple feet away and just you can kind of toss it to them. So I think in terms of Camino spirit, it's so Spanish. It's so shareable. It really just, it both breaks the ice, but also creates that connection with others. And lastly, absolutely delicious. Like, I think in the US, sometimes you get clementine, and it's a 50-50 shot, right? Between being, okay, this is a good clementine, and this isn't the best. Video recording limit. In the US, sometimes you get clementine that you're just like, had the potential, but it just never happened in Spain. Every single clementine was absolute perfection. But again, the shareability of the clementine was the main appeal and was, again, to me, by far the best Camino food. That's number one. The old clementine. I'm a former baseball player, so anything shaped like a baseball, I can throw. Don't need to convince me much more than that. So just an overview. At 10, we have ham. Then we go down to cheese. Olive oil, which is a bit of a dark horse. I don't think many people, if you read lists online, people aren't saying olive oil. But again, really nice to have. Soup, specifically after a long day, maybe made by a host or made by a crew that you're with. Just really great to have. Pasta, especially as that backup meal. Chocolate, because you don't have to ever convince anyone to not have a bar of chocolate a day if you give someone that freedom. Eggs, maybe more of a personal preference, but I don't complete the Camino without the eggs. chocolate milk, specifically cacao latte. Just an absolute powerhouse. Again, maybe I just like chocolate a little bit too much, but absolute powerhouse. Going down to bread, again, just like something so easy, simple, delicious at all time, always has your back, very common, goes with everything. There's just something, bread's like that, the jack of all trades. I mean, you can't go wrong with bread. And then number one, that clementine. Yeah, that shareability. There's something so Spanish about it. And yeah, just absolutely delicious as well. Well, I think you could be one of a few viewers here. You could be, maybe you stumbled across this video because either you're thinking about the Camino or you've done the Camino. If you are a pilgrim, whether future or past or present, I guess you can be out on the Camino. If you're walking it right now, best of luck. Maybe I gave you a little bit of tips or insider information or made you think about something a different way that you would do it. If you are, definitely let me know. I haven't met too many people in the US that have done the Camino. I've met a few people that have heard about it or who have wanted to do it, and it was fun. It's always fun talking about something like that. Definitely let me know if either you're a past pilgrim, as you'd be called, or if you're thinking about doing it and have any more questions. I might be coming out with more content just because, again, I really enjoy talking to this camera, if you can tell. I really enjoy talking to this camera, and I think I have some fun information, some fun stories to share. But also, I'd love to give the Camino just some love. It was such a big, impactful experience. I really, really enjoyed it. So you don't have to pull my ear to get me to talk about it. Or you could be someone that has never heard of the Camino. Maybe you just like foods, or maybe you don't have any clue about any of this, and maybe I just sparked your imagination a little bit. So if you have any questions, and I guess these aren't even restricted to Camino foods, I think any type of backpacking or these long pilgrimages could probably benefit from these type of foods, depending on location, country, and style of traveling. Again, a lot of these foods you just can't go wrong. I'm a pretty simple guy. Or thirdly, you can just be friend, family, stranger who just likes to hear me talk. And if you're that person, I also appreciate you as well. Maybe you have no interest in the Camino, but maybe you want to live vicariously through my stories, through my experiences, or just like the sound of my voice. If you were here for that, then I commend you as well. You are very welcome here. So I think that's it for today. I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Again, I got the set down. I'm going to try out the iPhone. I'm going to see what the iPhone looks like. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it'll kind of even surprise me. I give it a lot of credit. I guess I didn't technically know how it would look, especially compared side to side with this camera. Fire, yeah, I mean, you guys, it's not home. It's not, but it's ripping. Like, I can feel it. It's warm. And that's episode 6. So thank you for listening. Thank you for checking in. I look forward to hanging out with you guys in the next episode and moving forward. Again, if you have any questions about anything Camino related, feel free to ask. And I hope you have a great rest of your night or your morning, or from anywhere in the world, however you're listening, however you're watching, whatever time of day it is. Thank you.